So one of the times when I was on hiatus because I was actually in a custody battle that I didn't tell you guys about. But what happened was, and I actually wasn't trying to be in a custody battle for my daughter, but it happened. So, as you guys know, my daughter's 8 years old. She's autistic, nonverbal, all those things. And she's getting up and older in age, and they started asking like, do myself and her father, do we have a custody agreement or anything? And I'm like, no, or whatever. And I had some friends and they were like, you probably want to do something like that just in case anything goes left and he could, take your daughter or whatever. And you really wouldn't have any, you would have control, but you kind of wouldn't because there's no actual agreement, whatever. And so it's basically to protect myself and all those things. And so I went down and I filled out the paperwork. Cool. I called him, full transparency, just like with you guys. I called him and I said, hey, I filled out the paperwork I needed for school. And I actually basically don't have any paperwork that I have custody of our daughter, whatever. And that was it. I said, and then basically I met with her lawyer, and the lawyer was like, he was telling me everything about joint, and so he was like, for the most part, you probably wouldn't get sole custody because it's not as if he's posing a threat to you or your daughter. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, cool, fine. I was like, I'm just trying to make sure that I have all my ducks in a row and that I have paperwork, all those things. That's it. Cool. He was like, do you want a lawyer or anything? I'm like, no. Like for me, this was just a thing. Like, hey, I just want to make sure that I have my paperwork right, all this stuff. That's it. Well, we get into court and it's like, do you want to represent yourself? And, I'm like, yeah, I want to represent myself. This, for me, it wasn't that type of party. Well, when they asked her father, he says, yes, he wants a lawyer. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? So I was like, I guess I'm getting a lawyer too. So, but like at that moment, like my whole world was like shook upside down. I'm like, God, I'm doing what I'm thinking that's right. And all this other stuff. And I'm like, I could possibly lose my daughter. Like, what is going on? And so, we have the next court date. Well, the next court date comes around and her father waited too late to fill out the paperwork for a lawyer, so we had to go for another date. And at the second court date, my daughter's lawyer stated that if he doesn't show up or he doesn't have a lawyer for the next one, they're just going to do a default and I'll just get sole custody. I'm like, whatever. You know what I mean? Because now I'm like, now this is dragging on even further than I ever expected. Anyway, so you fast forward, and we're on our way to the third custody date. And so as I'm driving, God says to me, He says, sole custody. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he's not going to show up or whatever because, whatever. And so I go into the court, and he's not physically there, but, the little screen. I live up north, her father lives down south. And so with that being said, I was like, okay, so how is this going to work? Because God said sole custody, whatever, whatever. And lo and behold, when her father's lawyer got up and to speak or whatever, he said, yeah, he's cool with having sole custody, her have sole custody. He just want to make sure that he doesn't lose his rights. And I was like, what? Like, you know what I mean? And the whole thing about it was, I didn't think I was even going to be able to get sole custody because, like I said, what her lawyer said previously, but by the grace of God, it came to pass. And so, the encouragement that I want to give to parents is make sure that you have your paperwork right. Make sure that you don't put your guard down no matter how cool you may be with the other parent. For the most part, make sure that you are protecting yourself, not only yourself, but you're doing what's best for the child. Because at the end of the day, anything can happen. And the other part, of course, is all about God. I didn't expect to get joint custody or full custody. you know what I mean, or sole custody. My whole thing was to get joint. That's what I thought or whatever. But God had other plans. And if my lawyer, because my lawyer did speak to me, and she was like, do you want joint custody? You want sole or whatever? And I, once again, I'm still thinking I can't get sole custody because of what her lawyer said previously. But if my lawyer would have got up first, I would have probably got joint custody. But God turned it around in my favor and we got sole custody. And that, so I just want to give you guys encouragement if you're parents or whatever. Make sure that you have your paperwork right no matter what. You guys may be cool or whatever, but at least still try to get it in writing because once again, you never know.